Yeah, I'll never forget that moment because it was like, how could I be such an idiot? I get a call from this other GC and he's like, hey, what is going on here? And I'm like, what do you mean what's going on here? Like, you just got red tagged from the city. The inspector came out here. All of your shit is not built to fire code. And I'm like, not built to fire code? He's like, yeah, you're using the wrong width drywall. Your insulation isn't right. You got all these other things going on. And I'm like, now what? And he goes, well, I ran some quick numbers. I think it's going to be another $800,000 to finish this. I had already funded almost all of my construction loan. So I'm like, 800 grand. What am I going to do?
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Disruptors. Today we have Ryan Weimer with Offer Now Idaho, and he flew in from London. Talk about how he lost $1.2 million on just one deal. Now guys, I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on this show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire. In the next 5 to 7 years, if you'll take consistent action, you'll become one. And guys, if you get value out of the show, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can reach more people. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we're also available on iTunes and Spotify. If you're listening, we're also available on YouTube. You ready?
Let's get into it.
All right. So it's been 3 years since you've been on the show. A few things have happened.
Yes.
So I know we're going to talk about this major loss. But before we even get into that, London, that's a far cry from San Diego, which is where you were last time you were here.
Yes.
And you do deals in Idaho.
Yes.
What is happening in London?
Yeah. So yeah, gosh, it's really been that long, 3 years. So yeah. So last time we talked, 2021, the market was on fire, right?
It was easy.
It was easy. My whole team was order takers, myself included, just crushing it, right?
Right.
But we got into real estate to be able to travel, to be able to have financial freedom and do whatever we want, right? So ironically, we moved over, right as interest rates changed, like literally June 2022, we moved over.
Oh, that was when you made the move.
Yes. Perfect timing, right?
Perfect.
So it's always been a dream of my wife to live in London. It's her favorite city in the world. She got a internal transfer with her job. She's in cybersecurity, so we're on a 5-year visa over there. So we were like, screw it. We just had our first baby as well. We were like, let's go do it. Let's
see how good we are at juggling.
Let's go experience life. Yeah, but that's how we like to live our life.
Yeah.
We just love experiencing new things. We love traveling to new places. We've been to Africa like 5 or 6 times, all over Europe. It's just been phenomenal. So I really went in with rose-colored glasses about what it was going to be like, and it ended up being the complete opposite. Yeah.
What were you expecting?
So I was expecting, 3 days, I'll work into the evenings, and the rest of the time I'll be on Europe time, and I'll have some time off, and we'll be traveling and sipping Mai Tais and whatever. And it was all hands on deck, man.
So 3 days, part-time. Pretty ambitious goals.
Pretty ambitious. Complete naivety.
What were you doing when you were living in San Diego?
It was probably 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. I mean, we were still growing. We were trying to do as many deals as we could. Boise was the poster child during COVID. Like, I don't think people realize in just 2.5 years, it appreciated 53%. 53% in 2.5 years, right? So anything you touched, it was like, just get it under contract and we can move it kind of thing.
Right.
Not that we were underwriting that way, but of course, like, you get really aggressive when you're doing that stuff.
You can afford to overpay in that market.
100%. And you start making decisions, not betting on appreciation, but when you have 10 other people competing for the same lead, you automatically get bid up, or you have to really innovate to be able to capture any kind of meaningful market share.
Right.
So you get caught in that trap of like, well, I can either not do business, or I can go to what my buyers are buying it at and what my competition is buying it at. So
okay. So instead, it was all hands on deck. So what does that mean?
I mean, my working hours the entire time I've been over there have been about 2 p.m. to 3 a.m. I mean, so I'm up till, I don't go to bed till 3:30 a.m. every single day, 7 days a week.
Still.
And I don't share that with people. In fact, this is the first time I've ever talking about it. I get asked all the time, how is it? How does it work? And I'm an optimistic guy. Like I have never ending optimism, right? Like forever. Because I enjoy it, you know? So to hear most people, they're like, you work till 3 a.m. every day. I'm like, I don't hate it. I mean, it screws up my body clock for sure, but it's not ideal, but I do what I have to do. You know, so for me, it's just about doing what needs to be done. And of course we didn't plan for this, but like, yeah, I just had to make a major adjustment.
What was the reality that you're in?
Yeah.
What time are you waking up?
Like 11. So 11? I still get 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the wife is good with all that.
Fine, good.
She's accepted it.
I never would have been able to do any of this without her. She's been such a badass and supporting me, supporting us both, emotionally, financially. Just when we moved over there, expectations with your sales team, with your COO, with your spouse, with your kids, they can get you in trouble, right?
Right.
So having expectations that I'm going to be working part-time and I'm going to have normal hours with the family because we have, a young daughter. And then for that to completely go on its head has been incredibly difficult. Yeah.
So we're used to, it's just a given in the Philippines, they just work from midnight to 8 a.m. And that's just the way it is.
Normal. Yeah.
If you want to work for Americans, these are the hours.
Yeah.
Are the hours you're kind of talking about in London, is there like any kind of like social norms? Like, oh, it's okay. He just wakes up at 11 o'clock in the morning.
There are a lot of expats. So we know quite a few Americans that have moved over and they work for US based companies. So it is actually more common. Yeah. But they'll end at like 10 or 11 at night, not go till super late. So it's not completely out of the norm, but absolutely like having any kind of social life. I mean, we bought season tickets to Fulham, so like into soccer now, apparently. So experiencing all that stuff,
I think it's football.
Right, exactly.
Are you
American-based audience, right? Okay.
Are you a hooligan yet?
I will say the best part about living in England is learning all the new slang words that you've never heard of before. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it more complex? Because I remember I can't remember if it was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or if it was Snatch. But one of those movies, I think it was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, where they had like an entire encyclopedia to go with the movie, right? So is it like that, or like you're just speaking in a whole different language and no one knows what the hell you're talking about?
No, it's the same language, but it is definitely different. The voice inflections, if somebody calls you a bloody plonka, don't know if that's good or bad or endearing or not, right? Yeah. So you just... Yeah, like the whole first year over there, you're learning some new words. But what I have learned living over there is British people are a lot more similar to Americans than actually the rest of Europe, surprisingly. Yeah.
Can you give some examples there?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. I think they're a little bit more risk takers than the rest of Europe. They enjoy. That's a good question. I can't really put my finger on it.
You catch any flack for being an American citizen?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Not too much?
Not too much, no.
So when I was in college, I spent 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, right, in London, Dublin, and then I think it's Edinburgh.
Don't say Edinburgh.
Whatever
Edinburgh.
it is. Edinburgh. Whatever it is. It was beautiful, right? But I remember London, they were not particularly fond of us Americans. And this is around 2002, right? 2001. So whatever it was after 9/11. I know that. And they were like rude to us. And I was like, how can you tell we're Americans? Right? And they're like, well, because you wear jeans and sneakers. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Right? But then after that, I remember I was so put off by how rude they were to myself and my friends because we were Americans that when it got kind of crowded, I was walking around, I was like, excuse me, pardon me, American citizens coming through.
Well, that's why they were mean.
No, I did that after they were like pushing our buttons.
Listen, British people, they're like that to each other though. They want to be cynical. Like that's just, it's rainy all the time. It's dark.
Yeah.
You know, it gets in the winter. They still have daylight savings time, which I know we're in Arizona, so they don't have that.
Right.
And by the way, everybody's always like, it's at this time, Arizona time, when we're scheduling meetings. I'm like, what does that even mean? Well, how do you expect me to know what Arizona time means? Is it mountain? Is it Pacific?
Google.
Is it?
Google.
Yeah, okay. But it's like a rite of passage thing where they just love to be miserable and talk about their misery together. And I really think
that's why pubs are so prevalent.
Exactly. And they drink like none other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, love the pubs, love the fish and chips while we were out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you moved out there, things are a lot harder. And then we're going to talk about some of the big, devastating issues.
Big.
But before we get to there, let's talk about 5 of the biggest failures you've experienced in business.
Yeah.
So you've been in this business for how long now?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
All right. So 1 for each year.
That's good. There you go. Perfect.
Right? Just average.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're not due for another one. Okay. So first one, number 1, biggest failure in business so far.
Yeah. We lost $1.2 million on a single deal.
All right.
And I say I did.
All right. So we're going to save that for number 5 then.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
We're going to save that for number 5.
The best for last.
Best for last. All right. What's number 2? What was the second one?
Number 2 is I treated my business like a personal property conveyor belt and not like an actual business. And I completely screwed my growth.
Yeah. What does that mean?
So a lot of it has to do with the macro, the market fundamentals, right? So the whole reason why I have to stay up until 3 a.m. in England is because when interest rates change, Boise dropped 26% from peak in a matter of 6 months.
Yeah.
So like when you're meeting with sellers and they're basing their property value on Zillow, what their neighbor's home sold for 3 months ago, and you're meeting with them and the gap between what they expect and what you can offer is so freaking massive, you have problems.
Right.
You can't do any exit strategy except creative, really.
And even then,
which is a long game that you're not getting liquidity or cash a lot on those deals.
Right.
I mean, we wholesale some of those, but like you're not getting huge rips or assignment fees.
Yeah.
So immediately you get into this liquidity problem. So I stocked up on rentals 2019, 2020, 2021. It was stupid not to, right? If I'm so anti-paying taxes, which is kind of ironic because I live in England, but I don't have to pay taxes in England, thankfully, because we have a good tax person and figures all that out. But, you know, if we were to sell or flip any of those properties or wholesale them back in 2021, I was losing 30%, 35%, right? And actually being a resident of San Diego at the time, I was losing closer to 40 after California state tax.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to hold whatever I can hold. Problem was I was equity rich and cash poor, and I didn't understand that a good salesperson can make you $1 million a year in your business. So all that money was tied up in properties. I could not access it. I couldn't spend it more in marketing. I couldn't hire more salespeople. It was a really, really hard transition.
So what I'm hearing is with your business, because you were buying so many properties, you didn't really have any cash reserves when the market shifted.
Correct.
And because you didn't have any cash reserves when the market shifted, because they're all tied into your properties, you really couldn't do much to really pivot in that situation.
I had cash, but I completely underestimated 26% drop in 6 months. I wasn't around in 08 and 09.
Right.
But I didn't, the level of supply and inventory was so low, I could not fathom that just due to affordability, you could have that kind of market shift.
Yeah.
I just completely underestimated the risk analysis of that.
Well, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through 08 and 09, and I didn't think that could happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like the way it shifted that fast, just a 50% or 50 bips change could cause wreak that kind of havoc in such a short period of time, because you're in Boise, and I think probably you guys had the absolute worst of it, but Phoenix wasn't exactly roses.
I mean, anything Denver West, essentially, unless, San Diego and Southern California was okay-ish. But yeah, Seattle got clobbered.
But even San Diego got hurt pretty bad.
Yeah.
So like the things that, for those of you guys that are newer, that around in 22. Like it wasn't so much that the property values changed in Phoenix. It was how the deals got underwritten changed because like you could lock it up for 82, which blew my mind in Phoenix, 82%.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to account for repairs.
No.
And you could sell it. And then it went immediately to the way it should have always been, which is like 75% minus repairs.
Yeah.
Is what they'll buy it at, right? But even then, the uncertainty changed so quickly. People were like, I don't even know about 75%. I might need to be at 70 minus repairs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So cash deals went completely out the window. The only way we survived was creative finance deals.
Yeah.
Like 60% of our deal flow was creative finance and the other 40% were novations. We were like wholesaling almost nothing.
So explain to me what you were doing as far as creative deals.
Lots of $0 down sub 2 deals. Sometimes they have second position, 0% interest, notes to pay the seller equity. So lots of those.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you hold on to those or did you wholesale those?
Yeah. Yeah, we hold on to them. But again, and we're going to get to losing 1.2 on that big deal.
Right.
But when your business is cash poor, but you have all these personal properties, you're equity rich, then you also have a colossal blow like that. You're not prepared to reap the benefits of keeping all those 2.5%, 2%, 1.5%, even 0% deals. Like we had to wholesale them just out of necessity. So I kept as many as I could.
But eventually you had to wholesale some.
Yeah.
Because that was my question. Like, how are you paying the bills if you're locking out sub 2, which is great.
Yeah.
But you still need active income.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because our flips, we got crushed. We lost like 150 on one. We lost 80 on another. We lost 60 on another. Now, granted, in 2021 and leading up to that, we were making like 80 or 100 almost every one.
Yeah.
So it
was an ATM. You were dealing with ATMs back in.
So it's all relative, right? Like overall, we were still way up, but it was just, the misallocation of capital. And then,
well, I don't think this is an actual term, but it's kind of like the MC Hammer effect. Like you were spending it like it was going to keep going.
Totally.
And like it could slow down. But again, we underestimated how much it could slow down.
Yep.
So that's the biggest mistake. So then what changes did you make after learning from that? Because we're talking about the mistake, but what's the lesson from that?
Yeah, I had to start selling quite a few rental properties just to get liquidity. And I started really understanding. We started to get better at hiring is what happened. Because this whole time, it sucked going through it, but our entire competition completely dried up. Like Boise was the place to be and everybody was moving there and whatever. And then all of a sudden we were the only person doing deals. Like I was on all the lists of all that, because we would buy from other wholesalers and everything. I wasn't getting anything. Like we were the only ones doing deals in that dark period. So I saw the opportunity and I was like, I know this sucks right now, but we got to do whatever we can to gain market share because there's a massive opportunity here. So we were also like trying to scale at the same time that all this was going on.
Did you, when you were having to sell your properties, did you have to fire sell them, or were you able to like sell them on MLS?
No, I was able to sell them on the MLS. Yeah.
So you were able to get a decent amount of liquidity.
Yes.
Back.
Yeah. It never turned into like a 911 situation.
Okay.
But I felt like I was behind constantly, right? Because days on market was going up. So you think it's going to sell within 60 to 90 days. Well, that's more like 120. So.
Did you sell them all sub 2, or did you had to pay off the mortgage?
Meaning?
Like when you sold it to the next buyer, did they get a traditional mortgage? Paid off the mortgage?
Yeah, we didn't wrap very many of them. We just paid them off,
so it's probably good, but it definitely sucks how many of those, like, of 1 to 2.5%.
Yeah, now, I mean, fast forward to now. So all the ones that I sold, I actually have a few more doors now than I did in 2022, ironically. But I sold all the ones that were like over a 4%, and now most of my portfolio is 3% or under.
Oh, so the blend's better.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good.
But the exchange of capital is crazy, man. It was a wild ride. But we sucked at hiring. We got better at that.
I wrote that down. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So what was the next big mistake, big failure?
We lost $80,000. We lost an $80,000 deal from a TC error.
You're gonna have to elaborate.
Okay.
What exactly happened?
So we had, at any given time, we have a bunch of properties under contract, but we were renegotiating one that we locked up too high. I can't remember the exact story of what happened. Mm-hmm. We had a new transaction coordinator that was probably 3 months into the gig. And we had another property under contract that was going to be a big rip. I mean, we were going to make 80 on this thing. We already had a buyer lined up and everything. We had it under contract. It was ready to go, right? I don't think earnest money was in yet. We were just in the process of like fielding offers. Unfortunately, which is totally our fault, this is not our transaction coordinator's fault at all. It's totally our fault, our oversight. We didn't give the proper training. We didn't give the proper, 4 eyes check, right? You're an engineer. You know that lingo. So she sends out an addendum that says the new price to be this, mistakenly puts in the wrong property address. It was supposed to be a price reduction for a different property. She sends it to our sellers of the one we were supposed to make the big rip on, which is a net $80,000 increase to their purchase price. They sign it. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, that's legally binding. We just increased our purchase price $80,000.
For no reason.
For no reason. We call them up, hey, we're so sorry, there's been a mistake. This was supposed to go out to another property. Nope. We signed it. Mm-hmm. So they were just being assholes. Mm-hmm. So that was fun.
Did you actually close on that one?
No.
So you just walked away from it?
We had to, yeah.
Well, of course, yeah. I get that you had to walk away from it, but like they were completely unreasonable, and they were
totally unreasonable. We'd been working that guy for 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's what made it even worse. We'd been working him for 3 years. We'd met with him 5 times. Mm-hmm. Joel Miller, I remember his name. He was on one of the first tax delinquent lists that we ever. It was an inherited property, just too much emotion. Mm-hmm. It took him so long just to muster up the courage to sign with us, meeting with the same guy 5 times. He finds any excuse to then not have to go through with it, and he did that. So,
he still has that house?
I don't know.
Yeah, just wondering. Like,
I think it was up for tax deed auction soon, so I think he ended up selling to somebody for higher.
Yeah.
But man, that was brutal.
Right.
And that was like right when we needed it too. I think that was early in 2023 with like winter is coming, and it was just brutal. Yeah.
So what have you done with that failure?
Yeah. So most people would hear that and be like, oh, you fired the TC, right? We actually didn't fire the TC because of that. It was totally our mistake and a broken process. We didn't have anybody check. We were so busy that we just didn't check. Mm-hmm. And she had my DocuSign credentials, which I see this all the time. This is a big mistake. Mm-hmm. Like she was just signing stuff on behalf of me because I was busy and I was okay with it, right? She's a TC, let her do her job. It's way more friction for me to stop and sign all these damn documents, right? Big mistake. Now, when we approached her about it, that was the problem, is she didn't take any ownership or accountability of like, oh my gosh, I made a big mistake. How can we fix this? Right. This is all your fault. I can't believe you put me in this position. And I was like, what? We just lost the $80K deal. Like, you're still getting paid. What do you mean? Yeah. So that was not a cultural fit, obviously. And then she was let go shortly after that. So
it's for the lack of ownership.
Exactly. Not for making the mistake.
Yeah.
We encourage our team to fail. Like people, that's the biggest thing, is like when you're an entrepreneur and you're scaling and you're growing a team, you have to encourage and empower other people to fail. Otherwise, you're just going to be the control freak that's you're going to be the guy in that seat your whole life. Right. You're never going to relinquish control. So you really have to encourage your team to make mistakes, even if they're borderline catastrophic, right? Because that's a part of it. Right. You have to anticipate them.
So do you still have your TC DocuSign for you?
No.
You look at every single one now?
I do. Or my COO, Corey, yeah.
Yeah. I have Summer. She's here. Right? You saw her earlier. Absolutely will not sign anything for me. I was like, please, just sign it for me. She's like, no.
Smart.
I will not touch it. No, I want her to do it. I want her to sign it. Right? And
listen, the 999 other DocuSigns, it's going to be completely fine. It's that 1,000th one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So
yeah, I know. But then you look at it probably in the grand scale of things, right? It's easy to say like, oh, $80,000, like we save it, right? But then you also scale it out. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here, right?
Totally. The time that it takes you,
right? Like over the course of 5 years, if that's the only mistake you make, 80,000 over 5 years, like, is it worth, trade-offs? Who knows?
Yeah. I think once you get to a scale though, and a mistake could also get you liability or legal trouble, that's when you really need to consider like, what do I have to lose here? Like, what is real worst case scenario? Because if it is losing an $80K deal, okay, you'll get an $80K deal next month. But if it opens you up for liability into deeper things,
we're entrepreneurs. There's no risk in this business.
Never.
Yeah. We still got to get to the other big one. So anyway.
This is just the warm up.
Yeah. So, but I think right? Like, couldn't you just put processes in place where like double check or triple check versus you looking at it? I don't know, right? Because like I think about situations, and we don't have anything that really incredibly urgent anymore. As a matter of fact, today, something I took from the Whale Club is like, if I need to make a decision right now, the answer is no.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Like it used to be, it's like, oh man, I got to jump on this. Like it's a big opportunity. If I don't jump on it now, I'm going to miss out on it. Okay, great. Someone else can have it. I'll find another one of those later on.
Spoken like somebody wise that's made a bunch of mistakes from rushing into things, right? Because that's when we're most prone to mistakes.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's when we, it wasn't 80, it was 20, like we bought a deal like, oh, there are train tracks in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I've done it. Yeah.
Right. Like
backs up to a busy road. Yeah.
But you look at it real quick. It's like, oh, I'm looking at the sold comps on the street. Okay. It's fine. Right. But I didn't do like a full analysis. It was just like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then you look at it later on. It's like, why did we buy that one?
Yeah.
Right? But you don't back out because you got to honor your word.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have a reputation of being the guy that backs out. But yes, there's been more like, if you need a decision right now, the answer is no.
Yeah. A quick tip, actually.
Obstacle I hear from newer wholesalers is finding buyers for their deals. Because unless you've built a massive buyers list or have a huge dispo team, you might struggle to move your deals. So when we started working with InvestorLive, we've been able to reach new buyers and sell deals faster at higher prices. We can see buyers in our area, their contact information, and with the new AI capabilities, connect with the buyers most interested in our deals based on the algorithms. We can also see who's clicked on our deals, how many pictures they clicked on, and how long they spent looking at it, and finally, what actions they took after engaging with our deals. We are now connected with thousands of buyers in our markets, and we now know exactly where we are with each deal and what next steps to take. If this sounds like something that would resolve or help your dispo process, I highly encourage you, go to the website, put in Disruptors for 10% off so you can focus on locking up deals and less time worried, stressed, and frustrated about finding buyers.
Quick tip actually for the audience, we get an inspection report on every single deal now that we get under contract for two reasons. Number one, it allows anything we wholesale our buyers feel comfortable offering. It's one of those sweet ones with 3D walkthrough as well, so they can click through the link and see through all the rooms and be there. So anybody out of state can feel comfortable offering. But if we do need to renegotiate, we send them that inspection report. We wait 24 hours to let it marinate. Our renegotiation rate is like 75, 80%. Like it is insane how successful we are at renegotiations when we have to. We don't dick around with people. We only do that when we need to.
Right.
There's a very fine line between being ethical and unethical with that. But that is a total thing you're going to find cracks in foundations you never thought existed. That $400 is going to be an infinite ROI.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally believe that. All right. So, 80K. Next mistake. Next failure.
Number 4 is not spending enough time on hiring. So, like I said before, a good salesperson in your business can make you $1 million in revenue a year, just one person. So I remember in 2022 and early 2023 being, I can't pay $5,000 for a predictive index license. Like I'd be like messaging other members in CG, like, hey, can we get a test for this one guy? And do you have the COG score and all this stuff? And it was just so dumb, Steve. It's so dumb because you don't think about how much money you waste with all the bad hires.
Yeah.
I mean, salespeople are tough to hire.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know better than anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just this fallacy of you're tripping over nickels to pick up pennies if you're being cheap on your hiring. Now, the challenge is, as an entrepreneur, how do I find time to spend into hiring? Because the second you change your mindset and you treat hiring like you do your lead generation for sellers and for properties, your business will totally change.
Yeah. So what was your hiring process before?
Yeah, it was so-and-so. So we would post, on the job boards. I think we'd use WiseHire or something, or I don't think even WiseHire was around then, but we would post on LinkedIn and Indeed and all those. I would do an initial interview, and then I'd have like Corey, my COO, do another interview. We may or may not ask for references. We didn't do any personality tests. We didn't use a PI. We didn't do a COG score. We pretty much, or it was a referral. And it was like I like this guy. I think he'd be good. Let's give him a shot. Screw it, right? Or no, there's something he said was, Steve, we hired some of the worst people. And even now, fast forward with our process so dialed in, like we had some guy not show up on the second day. Like this just happens, like when you're hiring people at scale. But our hiring process was essentially non-existent, very much a gut feel type of thing, not measured.
And today?
Today, it's very rigid. Actually, and thanks to you and Ren's sales leadership training, we didn't exactly carbon copy that, but we made a full process. We do a phone screen. They fill out the predictive index. They do the COG score test. Then they do a sales group interview, which we really like. We throw them, 3 or 4 of them interview together on a Zoom or Google Meet at the same time. It's really awkward. Like the more awkward, the better, right? Because we want to see how they squirm and how they deal with it. Then they go to a behavioral interview. Then we'll do a reference check, and then they'll do a job shadow. Then they'll do a final CEO interview with me. Gotcha. So we got like 5 or 6 interviews, predictive index. We go through, I hired an operations manager this year, Tori. She is such a game changer. Yeah. She's really taken the bull by the horns there and developed all that out. But she's gone through over 1,000 resumes in 3 months already.
Really?
1,000 resumes, yeah. Yes.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Where is she getting most of the applicants from?
Most are LinkedIn, but it's like inbound and outbound leads on the lead gen side. You got to go through so many resumes and so many interviews with a cold applicant than you do a warm referral. Right. So warm referrals are tough. We're having some success with the solar industry right now, car sales a little bit. But man, it is tough out there. Like really our success rate with cold applicants, if they do make it through that entire process and we do bring them on, 1 out of every 4 is making it. 1 out of every 5 past 90 days. It's pretty tough. So there's this blend, and this is the struggle, is there's this blend of selling them on the vision and the opportunity and all the growth that comes with it. And then also being very realistic and borderline pessimistic about how hard it's going to kick their ass. Right? Yeah. So you have to be very optimistic, very, the best salesperson on the front end, sell them so you can get them into the funnel. And once you have them into the funnel, the more that they're bought, this is a legit company. They have legit goals. They have systems. They have processes. They have more leads and salespeople to close deals. Wow, there could be something for me here. That's the time when you not stick the knife in, but you say, hey man, this is going to be the hardest job you've ever done. And then they'll be like, okay, yeah, I know it's pretty. No. I'm telling you, this is how other people have failed. They've come in and we tell them with your draw and your compensation, it could be 6 to 10 months for you to start seeing bigger paychecks because what you've drawn against, it just takes that much time with the sales cycle to get really good, to close a bunch of deals. From the time, from the time a contract comes in, or from the time a lead comes in, it could be 30, 60, 90 days to get it under contract. Then it could be 30, 60, 90 days for it to close.
Right.
So those B2B type salespeople, like software sales is really, really tough transition. Even car sales, they make the sale, they see the commission on the very next paycheck. We've had a very, very low success rate with those type of things. And even in that last interview and leading up, when we're just hammering how hard it's going to be and trying to set those right expectations, it can be a big step for people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking like, is that different than a professional sports organization?
Correct.
Right? Like, you look at like the Denver Nuggets, Jokic.
Great team.
Right?
Better than the Suns.
They're an okay team. Anyway, you look at this guy, Jokic, and there's no way this guy should be like a world-class athlete. The guy can't even run in a straight line without like kind of doing this penguin thing.
He rides horses all summer in Slovakia or Slovenia or one of those two.
Right?
Yeah.
But he is like one of the top conditioned persons on the planet. Why? They have to put in the work. They have to make the sacrifices, right? So like I'm picking on him, but look at Luka Doncic. Nothing about this guy is like, oh, this guy's a premier athlete. Like he doesn't pass the eyeball test.
Not at all.
Right?
In fact, he looks out of shape. Both of them. Yeah.
But their conditioning is off the charts.
It is.
How? Right? And they can shoot like crazy, pass like crazy. It's like, well, they put in the work.
Yeah.
So like,
but you can also tell by their temperament, they never get too high or too low. So that's something, if you're dealing with somebody that's, 2 Sigma or higher independent, or, they're way more subjective than objective, they can be a little bit emotional, right? And so you have to really rein that in and understand that, right? So like Jokic and Luka's a little bit more animated, but like Jokic, he barely even smiles when they won the championship.
No,
like,
he was looking forward to his horses.
Exactly. But that's somebody that's obsessed with the process of getting better,
right?
Not the outcome. And that's so hard to find.
Exactly. And so if everyone is wondering what we're talking about the predictive index, objective versus subjective, right? There's a test for that, and then, or that's part of the test, and then 2 Sigma A, right? We're talking like you're 1 in 50, right? Like if you're past 1 in 100 level of like independent, probably not a good core value fit, which includes Ryan and me.
Yeah.
You would not want to hire us to work at your company. I wouldn't say we're necessarily be toxic, but we're going to cause problems.
Yeah. So that actually leads into kind of how I got here, right? I'm off the charts independent. I'm 3 Sigma independent venturer.
Yeah. The last time I took it, I showed the same, which I was surprised by. But anyway, continue.
You're a venturer now.
Apparently.
Wow. Okay. Because you were an individualist. That's
right.
Interesting. So you've gotten more independent as time has gone.
I've gotten less patient is what that test has shown.
Absolutely. Totally resonate with that. Okay. Yeah. So the first time I ever took PI and I saw that, this is why it's so important to like the $5,000 to spend just to, or I think you can get a 10%. You can negotiate it because it's software, right? Whatever it costs now. The amount of money that it saves you is in the 6 figures or even 7 figures.
Oh, 100%. I can't hire without that.
And not only that, it tells you exactly how you need to manage people. We pull it up while we're interviewing people, and we know the hot button questions to ask, right? If they're very independent, they're going to be fighting structure the whole time. So you got to ask them, how do they handle that? How do they want to be managed, right? These are tools that you have to have in your arsenal to really level up that I just didn't understand before.
Yeah. And our poor employers in the past, right? Managing us. Like we had, again, not a core value fit when I was at Intel, right? Like we had these 6 core values and like these core values suck, right?
Oh, I was like, core values? This is bullshit. Like, who cares?
Who cares?
Right?
As long as I get the job done, why do you care how I get it done? As long as the job gets done. Like that's not the Intel core values.
No, Steve, you have to sit at your desk until 5 p.m., even though you finished it 3 hours ago, just so everybody else can see you there.
Yeah. So, all right.
One more thing on that, though.
Yes.
I actually had my wife take the PI recently. Little did I know, and Julia, if you're watching this, she'll watch this, but she was an exact match. She's also a 3 Sigma independent venturer. Go figure.
So how are the fights in the house?
So childcare for us is a challenge, just being honest, right? Yeah. Because she gets her energy. She, works with a startup So she needs her time. I need my time. But I'm telling you, knowing that, once I knew that, it made so much more sense, and I could way better serve her as a husband, knowing that about my wife.
Yeah.
So it's something I should have done years ago, honestly. It would have saved a lot.
Myself included. So like I thought my wife was a certain thing on the disc, right? Based off her interactions. Like, okay, she clearly wants more stability, right? And she cares about family. So she's a high S for sure, right? And then we took the PI. It's like, no, she's not a high S. She's a very low S, right? It's the high independent is why, you know, when I say, hey, we're doing this, like it doesn't work, right? It's the high independent. But now that I know, like she's very independent, you know, like she wants to do things her way, which happens to be the right way because she's a strategist. But she wanted it yesterday, right? So now I can work with within these confines. Whereas before I was kind of guessing what was important.
Totally.
And like you can ask somebody what's important to them, but they still don't. Not everyone knows what's important to them, right? But now I can look at this like, okay. As a matter of fact, I remember Gary Harper was in town, and he invited. And he was in town with Susan and Nathan Brooks, right? And then myself and my wife were going to come to join them for dinner. And he sends me a message like, "Hey, are you cool if we just change dinner from 6 to 5?" Right? And I was like, "My wife is a strategist.
World War II.
Like my wife is a strategist. All right, we'll keep it at 6 because we know a strategist. You move that dinner plans an hour earlier, 2 hours before dinner. Forget about
the whole night shot.
Right?
Yeah, the mood is gone. It's no longer fun.
Right.
Yeah.
But you and me, it's like, hey, we moved in hours. Okay. Like, let me just make sure that calendar still works. Okay. There's very little resistance, but you know, her being a strategist, right? You know this, and then we also know we're both high A's. And we got to figure out, okay, which one do I want her to win? Which one do I want? Like, do I want a challenge? Which is true in most marriages. But dealing with two alphas, you have to be even more strategic.
Totally. But that gives you the ability to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Right. And so now you can plant seeds ahead of time, put things in the calendar in advance. She loves that because you're being proactive now. You're being thoughtful. And now the female version of this that we hear is like my love languages. Well, the business entrepreneurial approach is the predictive index to your marriage. Right. And so, on a real note, going through all these challenges and living in England and we're on opposite work schedules. Plus we have a small child. Like it's been a lot. So every little thing that you can do to give yourself any kind of edge there is really, really helpful. Knowing that my wife loves her independence, I need to be proactive in planning stuff in advance so she has something to look forward to so she can be like, okay, this is my time. And she can like get through all the shit leading up to that because she has something in the schedule to look forward to that we can do together.
Yeah, what I have found is by planning ahead of time, she can now plan around that.
Exactly. Yep.
That's like the biggest thing for her. She can plan around our existing plans. It's when I mess with her plans that I'm getting ready for the doghouse. So we talked about a couple different things here.
Yes.
Predictive index, you guys want to check that out? I think it's just predictiveindex.com.
Yeah.
Right. And then the stuff we're talking about hiring, salespeople, managing salespeople, that's something that we offer with our sales leadership. So you guys are interested, just comment below. And then I took the PI, I had my wife take the PI, and there's that test that says, not the test, but the results that show like how to cooperate or how to interact as two PIs. Have you taken the Enneagram?
No.
So Enneagram is some like really old thing. It's like thousands of years old. And I took it and my wife took it. And I found that Enneagram, how to interact with each other was even more precise.
Oh, wow.
It's like, here are the things you fight about. Here are the things that...
You're like, yes.
Yeah, they have it for spouses. Like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So that's something else to check out as well. All right. And there's one more lesson, right? Before we get to the big loss.
Yes.
What's the last one?
So the last one is, while all of this has been going on, allowing it to impact your future confidence and your decision making. Now, bad things happen to you. Bad things happen to people all the time. It's all relative in your life, right? There's people starving in Africa. There's people with better opportunities, worse opportunities. You have to have the ability, especially in entrepreneurship, when you're just getting your kicked in on a regular basis, the ability to zoom out.
Yeah.
And you have to continue to ask yourself, I can't control that. How can I control in this moment what my action is and what my plan is? If you don't do that, you allow the emotion of the situation feel way bigger than it is, right? And then you start, like, easier said than done. But that's something that I really found out about myself is I got wrapped up in some of that. I could have just, in these tough moments, doubled down, gotten back on the phones earlier, whatever I needed to do in the business, and been less emotional. And I'm not an emotional person right away, but like, you have to be able to zoom out and control what you can control.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't serve you to feel sorry for yourself. I know everybody has a different grieving process or whatever that means, or meditation or whatever the hell, people do these days to get their mind right.
Right.
All of that is really just distraction. You just need to do the freaking work. So I think I wasted a bit of time when all this change was happening, trying to figure out what to do instead of just attacking it head on.
So you're saying, if I'm hearing correctly, you wasted too much time feeling bad for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and I get over things pretty quickly. So I'm probably my harshest critic there. But like, even a minute where your mind is thinking about, oh, that lawsuit going on, or oh, prices have changed. What are we going to do in this situation? Like, it's just not helpful. It's not a helpful framework for decision making and future you.
Yeah. So knowing what you know now, let's say something catastrophic happens again. I mean, we're talking about one a year, so.
But on a serious note, no, it is to expect it.
Right. So now something catastrophic happens for business. What are you doing differently with this newfound lesson? Yeah.
So it's about a framework of expecting failure instead of fighting it. People are going to think that I'm probably a little cuckoo after the show, especially after we talk about the big failure, the biggest one. But in 2020, 2021, when we moved to England, I was the kind of guy that was like, I just want to see how far I can push the gas. I'm all gas, no brakes. I know that I'm going to fail. I just can't crash and die. And I'm wired like that. I wanted to see how far I could go, or else I would never know, right? I'm just weird like that. I don't know if anybody else listening to this, I don't know if that sounds like you, but like, I really wanted to see how much could I put on my plate, knowing that I would fail, and see what happens. Because I truly believe the best amount of growth, the fastest pace of growth comes from who can fail hardest and fail fastest.
Yeah.
So like, that was what I went in, the mindset that I went in with in the beginning. And then when it starts happening to you, you start realizing, oh, this isn't a week-long lesson. This isn't a month-long lesson. This isn't a 1-year lesson. Like this could be a 5-year lesson. And it changes your perspective a little bit. So now knowing that, future me is thankful that I went through all these things.
Right.
But me now is fighting it. Right? Me now doesn't like it, even though I told myself that I liked it and I wanted to do it to begin with.
So you don't regret it. Are you going a little less gas today than before?
100%, yeah. But I had to, and that's the thing is like, well, Ryan, could you have ended up in the same position, or knowing like how much gas is too much gas without going through that? And there's no way I could have. I had to do that. I had to.
Yeah.
Now, when we're going to talk about this, a lot of this stuff was completely out of my control, and I actually didn't really, I was naive, but I didn't make any glaring errors where you're going to be like, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Like, it was all circumstantial things that happened to me that were outside of my control. But what I could control is how I handled them.
There's a concept in racing where like you want the car to be just a little bit before out of control, but you can't find that limit.
No,
unless you're pushing the car to the limits of staying in control and out of control. And like these guys have to crash. The race car drivers have to crash, or they'll never find that limit. They'll never find greatness.
Yeah.
Right. And then, all the personal development stuff, like you got to find what your comfort zone is and then go outside of it. Otherwise you can't grow.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, is like when you're talking about like, you got to figure out where you can crash and burn, like it just takes me back to myself. Cause like I would tell my team, like, I'm fine going 150 in a Prius. Like, let's figure out how fast we can go until the car starts braking. And then we're going to do a pit stop. And then we're going to upgrade that part of the car. And we're going to go back out and see how fast we can take this Prius. Kind of sounds like you're talking about the same thing. Today's podcast is brought to you by motivatedleads.com. With them, you can get $300 worth of quality local leads sent exclusively to your inbox by just mentioning my name. I've used them, and they're one of the best producers of solid seller leads on a local level. And they fully guarantee the leads that they send you. To get your $300 free credit, just head over to motivatedleads.com, hit the claim your area button, and let them know that I sent you.
Yeah. The difference though and this is the problem with that mindset, the contrarian view, right? Is if you crash in a car, you have to make sure, number one, you can walk out, you can walk away uninjured or alive, right?
Oh, we call that PK.
Yeah. But you can get in another car.
Yeah.
Right? When you have some kind of business failure or life failure that you put yourself in, it's not like not a next week thing. Like this can be like one of my favorite Alex Hormozy frames. The Rocky cut scene lasts 90 seconds in the movie and it can last 5 years in real life. So at the moment that you've already learned the lesson and you've already learned the limit, it could be more years of reminding you of that lesson.
Oh yeah. Still learning some of those lessons.
100%. But it is really, now I expect them to happen. And so I make decisions and I future forecast and I plan ahead expecting for those failures. And I risk weight adjust them significantly higher, especially macro with what's going on in the economy and interest rates and everything. You just have to adjust for far greater than you think, especially if you're a young, naive, 3 Sigma independent entrepreneur.
Yeah. How are you doing that? How are you assessing and like limiting the risk now?
I'm not doing any development deals, so that's for one.
Yeah.
A lot of it's
so stay in your lane, know what you're good at.
Focus. No, just like you have to learning how to say no is a skill, right? Before it was yes to everything because I just wanted to see what would happen,
right? And
how much I could learn from it, and I really had a growth mindset about it. But it is now the default is no instead of yes, and solvable problem and whale club and everything. That's exactly what's taught, right?
Yeah, whale clubs. Like how do we limit the downside while planning for the upside? And then Larry Yatch, who's been on the show before, we talk about like you have to plan to fail. It's like, what do you mean? Like, because we've heard the expression, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? It's like no, like you actually have to plan to fail. Like, what happens if this doesn't work out, right? And so like they have like, they put chains when they go out in their Humvees, these SEALs, they have chains just so if like 2 tires blow out, they can connect 2 Humvees together with chains so that they can still drive the Humvees. Like, duh, that's obvious, right? Because they only have 1 spare.
Yeah.
So like they plan for bad things to happen and then they'll be fine. So now going to the big lesson.
The big one.
Big one, right? I'm like, who cares? Like you lose 7 figures in one day. Like what's the big deal? So what happened?
Yeah. What didn't happen? That's what didn't happen. That's a better question. So when I was in this phase of conquest, I guess you could say in 2021,
when you were invincible,
when I was invincible, yeah, the market was going bananas, right? So this was mid 2021, just as a time reference. So this was already over 3 years ago. Okay. That I'm still paying lessons for now, right? So it has really, really affected my life,
Yeah.
the first mistake was I have gotten mentorship from a lot of different people, and for this particular situation, I chose the wrong mentor. That was the biggest one, and I ignored some warning signs because I was a little bit naive, and I had also worked with this person for a while. So I bought a deal from him. It was a development deal. I have never done a development deal before. So, of course, if you've never done a development deal before, you better either partner up so you can learn or have a coach or mentor that can guide you through the process.
Someone that can underwrite the deal and point out all the pitfalls.
Absolutely, yeah. So I didn't know what I didn't know because that's why I had the mentor, right? Now,
so you actually did the right thing. It was just the wrong person.
It was just the wrong person, yeah. Because what I didn't know is this particular property he had only owned for like 2 or 3 months. Now, in a development deal, when you're dealing with city regulations, zoning, permits, planned development, you got, city planning meetings, you have all these hurdles and hoops to jump through. It's completely different than anything I had ever done before. I had no freaking clue. Like the checkpoints. Oh, you need to have a fire truck turn around, and you need to have the fire service to come sign off on where the hydrant's located, and like all of these dumb, stupid things.
Fire truck turnaround. What the hell are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah, right? So he had only owned it for 2 or 3 months before selling to me. You cannot do a proper amount of due diligence on where the property is at in that short of a period of time, unless you have horizontal permits or vertical permits in hand, which is like a checkpoint, right? You've gone through planning and zoning, you've gone through your different permitting process. Now, boom, you have your permits in hand. If you don't have your permits in hand and people are trying to sell a property that's fully entitled, they're completely full of shit. They could be at step 1 in the process. They could be at step 99 in the process, and anywhere in between, you have no idea.
Yeah.
So he sold it to me, telling me all I needed to do was get like the fire chief to sign off on the location of the hydrant, and boom, I would have my permits.
Fully entitled was how it was conveyed to you.
Absolutely. But I didn't know he had only owned it for 2 or 3 months, so he actually hadn't gone through the full due diligence to even know himself. So it wasn't that he was trying to sell me something to deceive me. It was that he was being naive himself.
Yeah. But I mean, I hear fully entitled is like, we're ready to start work.
Shovel ready, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It was not the case.
Okay.
So here I go. I fund a full construction loan, personally guaranteed, on the premise that it's shovel ready, or that I need to go to the fire chief to sign off. It'll be a couple weeks, and then I'll be able to start.
Right.
9 months later, I finally get my permits. I fully funded like a $4.5 million construction loan, $3.5 million construction loan. That's a lot of interest in 9 months.
It is. I'm curious. This was a bank that you went through?
No, it was like a quasi hard money type of.
Gotcha.
Because it was my first one.
Okay.
I had some silent partners in it, but I was personally guaranteed, and I was the one on the.
Yeah, because I would imagine a bank would have required all the final paperwork.
Yep.
So there's another lesson there.
Yep.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that was the first domino to fall, if you will. So I start 9 months late. Okay, great. Big whoop.
What was the interest on that?
It was 10.5%.
So almost a point a month.
Yes.
So $40K.
Yeah.
A month.
Yep. Yeah. So now I hadn't drawn on it, so it was less than that. I hadn't drawn on it. It was just the land acquisition plus, some soft costs for the plans and other things. But so fast forward that we didn't break ground then until about spring 2022. So this is still early, right? Rates haven't changed yet. The market hasn't changed yet. Actually, things in Boise were selling sub 4 cap. I underwrote this thing worst case at a 5.25. Brand new product in Boise, and thank God it was in a location. Thank God, was selling sub 4 cap. Brand new stuff. I underwrote it conservatively at 5.25. Like that was a big thing for me. But the appraisal came in low. The first appraisal when I was buying it, he told me to go hey, that's wrong. Go argue it. Tried to argue. They wouldn't do it. I paid another $6,000 for an appraisal. They finally gave me the numbers that the lender wanted so that he could be fully cashed out of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start construction here in spring 2022, like I still feel pretty good about the deal. You know, like it's not like I missed underwriting the deal and I like was too aggressive betting on appreciation. I was actually, my engineer brain doesn't allow me to, with spreadsheets, be like overly optimistic, right?
Yeah.
So the contractor that I was referred to started off okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got foundations poured, we got horizontal done. And as we were starting to go vertical, now it's fall of 2022 and interest rates have just changed. I get an email in November of 2022 from my lender that says, hey, we're illiquid and we can no longer fund your construction draws. We think it's just a delay, but we're doing everything we can, you know, the sugar coating everything.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing everything we can to get this, you know, draw to you as fast as possible. I'm like putting up framing at this point. I got contractors walking off the job because I can't pay them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in breach. My lender breached their loan agreement. So all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit, I gotta fund whatever I can to keep this moving out of my own pocket. Because guess what? I can't go to another lender. They're going to look at it. It's a half done construction job. They're not going to give me favorable terms on that.
Yeah.
It's like a half built thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a real bad situation here when my lender's just like, sorry, we're illiquid.
Did you find out why?
They just got over leveraged. So because when the market changed and interest rates increased, people couldn't exit some of these bigger deals. They were taking longer days on market. So they had probably projected an average, right, of when their cash conversion cycle and when their liquidity would come back in. And when that shot over the moon, they just missed all their targets and everything. Yeah. So that was the first oh shit moment. So I'm limping along there, but I still suffered about like 4 months of delay. They actually got their act together and were able to finally start funding these again. So it could have been worse, honestly, worse than a $1.2 million loss, because they were actually able to fund. I thought they would go belly up. When I got that email, I was like, oh no, this is probably what happened in 08 and 09. Like I'm screwed. Yeah. So my contractor keeps working, but things are getting missed. So my contractor starts being, you know, I'm not in Boise, right? Now, and this is me being naive too. Like I had a project manager, but he was mostly doing flips. I had him stop by occasionally. This was my GC. He was running all the subs and everything. I gave him total control again because he was referred to me by someone that I trusted, that I was paying for mentorship.
Yeah.
So I didn't think I needed to oversee him a lot. So I brought in another contractor because I felt things were not going right. And I'll never forget, I was in Riga, Latvia with my wife. Fantastic place, right on the water, super fun. Eastern Europe, great place, highly recommend. And I'll never forget, we're sitting in our Airbnb and I get a call from this other GC and he's like, hey, what is going on here? And I'm like, what do you mean what's going on here? Like this is where we're at and these are, no dude, like you just got red tagged from the city. The inspector came out here. All of your shit is not built to fire code.
Wow.
And I'm like, not built to fire code? He's like, yeah, you're using the wrong width drywall. You know, your insulation isn't right. You got all these other things going on. And I'm like, now what? And he goes, well, I ran some quick numbers. I think it's going to be another $800,000 to finish this. And I'm like, I had already funded almost all of my construction loan. So I'm like, 800 grand. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I'll never forget that moment because it was like a real holy crap. Like this is serious. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this or what I'm going to do. And like all the feelings of emotion then of kind of betrayal of how could this happen? How could I be such an idiot? Like really beating myself up with, like we were talking about earlier. And that was definitely a moment where I felt sorry for myself for a while. So yeah, what next? I slowly started chipping away. I raised a little bit of private money, but I essentially had to liquidate some of my properties. And
Even more
properties of my personal properties, and just limping along, right? Because at that moment, I had a decision. I can let this go to foreclosure, but it's personally guaranteed. So if it sells at auction, they could probably come after my personal assets anyways. When I ran, and God, that is not an exercise that you want to do.
No.
Trust me.
No.
Like, how do I want to be killed, basically?
Yeah.
But when I did that exercise, it made more sense to finish it and to really just bootstrap it and get it done. So that's what I did. I spent the next, year and a half, brought in a different GC. They ripped everything out. I had to pay for everything to get ripped out. I was selling properties month by month to get this thing finished. Meanwhile, the lender is hitting me with default interest and extension fees, even though they breached their contract by causing me a delay of 4 months to begin with. They're just hitting me from all angles through this whole thing. And there's lawsuits out the wazoo going on with this. Right. So who knows when that'll get resolved.
Yeah.
But this whole time I'm thinking, I just need to get it done and get sold. And I couldn't let it go to foreclosure because I had some private silent investors on it that I also guaranteed interest. And I was like, my reputation's on the line. I got to do whatever I need to do to make sure that they get made whole.
Right.
So we finish the project, and when we finish it, the market's changed, and it takes me about another year and a half from that point to finally finish it. We just sold it here in July 2024. It was only 12 units, Steve. It was not this huge.
Really?
It was 12-unit multifamily project, 3 fourplexes. It was not, thank God it wasn't something bigger.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I ended up eating that $800K that I had to limp along with by selling all my personal properties. Plus, when my construction lender went illiquid, me funding all that stuff. So I'm in the hole like over $1 million, and then it sold because the market had changed. It sold for a little bit less than what our worst case scenario projected wise. Only a little bit. After all that, when I looked at the numbers, I was like, it actually didn't sell. It sold at like a 5.5, and my worst case was 5.25. It wasn't that big of a miss on the underwriting side. My rents were dialed in. My pro forma and everything was pretty solid. Considering what happened, interest rates doubled, right? So thank God, again, it was in a good location. But yeah, I had to totally eat all that. And now I have to go after the lender. I have to go after the contractor to try to get some money back. Who knows?
What was the GC doing when they were putting in the wrong materials?
I think he was just not there. I think he was just letting subs do it. And then visually, if you're not on top of it and you're not actually looking at what's being installed, it could look okay. Right.
Gotcha. So he was just kind of being inattentive.
Yes.
Right. So he wasn't what you classically hear of them like stealing your materials or stuff like that, stealing your money. He just was incompetent.
Now, there was, skipped over this part. There was an issue with the cabinets. So he subbed out a cabinet company to deliver all the cabinets. I sent the wire directly to the cabinet company for materials because I'm not sending money directly to this GC. The cabinets never showed up. So that was about 80 grand for all those. I do a little bit of digging. The LLC is owned by the GC's brother. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like I know exactly what's happened here. So this was before I got rid of that GC, but I called him up and I was like, dude, where are the cabinets? Like, this is your brother's company? Like, what's going on? He's like, oh, no, we'll get the cabinets. Dude shows up with a bunch of Lowe's like boxes of Lowe's cabinets on site. He's got like 4 cabinets out of the 160 that we need for the 12 units. And he's like, we're going to get more. We're going to get more. And I'm like, no, this is obviously it was a total fraud. Total fraud.
Right.
So yeah, everything that could go wrong went wrong.
And you're all doing this while you're in London.
Yes.
So I want to go back to, well, losing the $800K or finding out it was $800K. Was that before or after the $80K TC fee?
That was after.
That was after. Okay, so the $80K wasn't so bad anymore.
Right.
It was kind of dwarfed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Easy to move on from. All right. So wrong mentor. So what questions did you not ask when you were, because you worked with multiple mentors?
I worked with multiple mentors. This particular one I had worked with for almost a year.
Yeah. So what do you wish you asked or looked for that you didn't?
I think it was more what I ignored than...
So something you saw that didn't add up, but you didn't question.
Right.
Didn't have the courage to question.
Right. Yeah. A lot of that was financial literacy. So now in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, when he said that or asked those questions, that's not something that somebody that's like really in the details would ask.
Right.
So again, and then this is where like it really hurts me to talk about this because I mean, I knew him really well. I hung out with his family. We were really close, and it wasn't purposeful in nature. I think he was just not in the details at all. So I don't think he did any of it on purpose. But the shameful thing is that when I called him and had these difficult discussions, like, dude, what is going on? Like, I need help. What?
Help me navigate this.
Yes. He was very defensive.
Yeah.
He did help me finish the project with, bringing in some extra help to undo what the other GC messed up. But by then the damage was already done. And it was just the lack of accountability of, when I make a mistake, whether I intend to or not, I will tell you I made a mistake and I'm going to do whatever I can to make it right. And he just didn't do that.
Well, that kind of goes to show when you were talking about you had second lenders that you had to make whole. You weren't going to let them, leave them holding the bag, right? And it's tough because there's people in the industry that you and I know they're full of it. We can tell by the way they talk.
Yes.
They're full of it. But it's impossible for someone on the outside that's newer to be able to tell the difference. That's what sucks.
It does. And so that's where I'm like, oh man, Steve, when I go back to these moments and I'm like, because trust me, what could I have done? It's just a downward spiral for me of thinking where it no longer becomes helpful of how do I move forward from this, but you just beat yourself up. And it gets to a point where you're like, bad shit happened. I can't do anything about it now.
Yeah.
Here's what I need to do. Asking myself for the 13th time, how could I trust him? How could I not be more diligent? How did I not check things more? It's just not helpful.
Yeah. So we have like a guru hotline, bad guru hotline.
Okay.
All right. I just submit everything to Corey Thompson. Right. You follow him? Roughneck to Real Estate. He's in Dallas, Fort Worth. Love that guy. So if there's anything like, he goes, hey, Corey, have you heard about this guy? And I just leave it at that. I just send him a message on Facebook. You know anything about this guy? And we just move on. That's my wholesale hotline. That's my bad guru hotline, right? Was it the secret, the secret tips hotline, right? Like that's my tips hotline.
And at the same time though, it was all my fault. It was my fault.
Yeah.
I was doing so many things at once. I was seriously going into that. I was like, this is my first development deal. I know that there's a lot of risk associated with this. Honestly, if I break even, but I have all this experience under my belt, I would consider that a win 10 out of 10 times. It was my fault.
Yeah.
So like, I can't I hate sitting here talking about these failures, number one, because I don't want the audience for it to be an excuse to not take action. That is the worst thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Right? You just have to be calculated in how you do it. And once you get that focus, you go all in. But I can't sit here and say like, oh man, that guy, he really screwed me over, even though he may have, but it was totally my fault. It was
preventable.
It was.
You could have avoided it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm filming this video for the man himself, Mr. Ian Ross. The guy crushes. The guy's the best person in sales I've ever seen. I've invested elsewhere and I haven't got the same results. I've gone from being a seller, making 5K a month, to being a hybrid role, making 11K a month, to now be 4 months down the line from 5K to on a closing opportunity, inbound, full calendar, with the best opportunity, the best offer in my space. OTE is around 20K a month from month 2. So I've gone from 5K to 20K. If that's not a return on your investment, I don't know what is, man. If you're a salesperson and you don't invest in sales training, you're gonna get left behind because your job is to be better at sales. And sales training directly makes you more money.
My name is Lance McCann. I have recently switched sessions with Ian Ross. Those conversations with Ian has made me $50,000 in the past 2 deals that I've had. I was able to go back and renegotiate the original purchase price on one deal, and I saved $40,000, and I got another $10,000 off my other deal. Let's call Ian, give him a chance. You won't regret it.
If you like what you just heard and you'd like to have similar types of results, similar success, text CLOSE, CLOSE, to 33777, and we'll see if you qualify to join Advanced Sales Mastery. We are taking people from good to great.
Yeah. So going back to now focus, which is what we were saying earlier, what are you doing now to stay focused?
Yeah. So beauty comes out of the struggle. So for me, we started doing something called Weimer method. So Weimer method is, not to get too much in the weeds, but it's 0% interest cash in your bank account. An unlimited amount of 0% interest money in your bank account. How in the world do you do that?
Right.
We do a lot of creative finance deals, whether it's a seller finance or a subject to, and then paying the seller's equity over time in a second position. A lot of times we can get those notes at 0% interest. So principal only payments. We're really, really good at that. The one piece we started adding, which really helped me get through this, we started doing substitutions of collateral. So we've raised over $1 million this year at 0% interest doing this, which was my savior. Like this is how, and now we're doing so many of these, it is incredible. But we get a property under contract. Let's say it's a seller finance. Let's say I buy it for $300K. I give the seller $20K, I owe him $280.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm paying that 0% note over time. Instead of that note being secured against that property, I put it in second position against one of my rentals with equity. So now this subject property is free and clear.
Right.
So I can flip it. And I get all that $280K cash or more if it's worth more, right? We buy it at a discount. So now I have all that money at 0% interest in my account, liquidity, and I get to keep the full benefit of that note against a completely different property. So that's Weimer method.
Yeah.
It's a substitution of collateral for 0% interest notes.
Yeah. So, how did you come up with this?
Yeah, how did we come up with it? I think part of it was we were looking at ways that we needed liquidity. And I think there was a skinny deal that we had that was a straight seller finance at 0% interest. And we were like, it's not going to cash flow. It needs a little bit of work. It's at like 80% of value. So you can't really flip it. What could we do here? Well, what if we did a substitution of collateral and we put that note against something else? Now all of a sudden, if I get that $280K, I can go pay off other debts with it, and I can make money on a deal that really wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Right.
So it honestly just came out of like a light bulb moment of innovation of how could we make this deal work? And that's the beauty of creative finance.
The best thing about creative finance.
Like you can do almost anything you want, you know? So yeah, it really came out of like a need for liquidity and capital. And that's the funny thing about this is going through all that failure and all that shit. This would have never happened. This skill that I can use for the rest of my life now. How much money do you think getting unlimited funds at 0% interest is going to make me over a lifetime? Way the fuck more than 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So that's the funny part about it is looking back, it's like, oh, something really good has come out of this, plus all those other lessons learned.
Right.
And now we can apply this to a bunch of creative finance deals we do. So this year we just did our biggest deal in company history. It was a Weimer method deal.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So we made just over $400K in profit, and we got $500K in cash at 0% interest.
So say it again, 400K.
So we made $400K profit, and then we got an additional $500K cash at 0% interest in our account. So we got $900K liquidity.
That's a pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal. So I basically made up almost all the loss
Yeah.
just from that one deal. Now, I still have to pay that note, so
Sure.
it's not profit, but it's at 0%. So I can take that $500K, I can pay off another property with more debt. I can spend a little bit on marketing because it's at 0%. I can pay off whatever I want to pay off.
Well, and the best part, well, for me, the best part is that you're not even paying taxes on the 500K, right? That's just debt.
Free money. Yes.
Free money, right? You're borrowing at 0, which in a, what are we like right now? 2.4, 2.7% appreciating or inflation market, right? It's free money. You're getting paid basically to have money. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Steve, I haven't done, I might do a presentation on this at CG next time. But I don't see anybody else doing this in the space.
I don't see a lot of people talking about the thing I love about the old dogs, right? The guys that have been doing it longer than we've been alive. They know all this stuff. They know all this stuff. They know how to do it. It's easy. They know all these different ways to make a boatload of money without paying taxes. Right?
But they're the ones that aren't necessarily the gurus on social media, right?
No,
So
you can't find these guys on social media.
So now some things you need to be aware of for this. Like you can't put these notes against properties that don't have equity. So you have to have rentals with equity. Like this isn't something a beginner could do,
Right.
which is part of the problem, right? You can't put somebody's note in second position against a property unless, number one, it's of equal or greater value and you have sufficient equity in the event that property value decreases. We're not trying to screw over
Anybody.
sellers. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but we're very upfront. Ideally, if you want to do this, and I can teach you guys how to do this, but you have to have that property address that it's going to be secured against ready when you sign the initial contract. Very important. It's going to be way easier.
Yeah.
And then there's just a separate one-page substitution of collateral the title company uses at closing. It says the property that it's going to be secured against, and the seller signs off.
Yeah.
But they have to approve it, and the title company tells them, here's how much is owed against this other property your note's being secured against. Are you okay with that? Right? This isn't the wild, wild west. Like you have to be very, very responsible with this. And if you don't have any properties with equity, you can't do it.
No. It's interesting that you do it that way because how I would approach this with just what we talked about right now is I would buy it with the collateral on that property.
Yep.
And then I would just give you a notice. Hey, just so you know, this collateral is now that collateral. All right, so your 280K is sitting over here versus here, right? And then it would just be a notice. It wouldn't even be like an agreement.
So we tried to do that. The title company said, no.
Title company
Can't
said
do
no?
it. They said you have to do it at closing.
Really?
Yep, on the purchase. Yep.
Good to know.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's Idaho, so it depends on your state. But
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't do it the way you're doing it right now, right? I'm just saying if I were to do it, the beauty of substitution of collateral is that there's no limit to how many times you can do it, right? You can just put it over here. Oh, hey, we're selling that property, so put this over here.
they would not let us do that. They said every time we move it, we have to get a separate seller signature, even with a POA and even with everything. So
Fascinating.
again, might just be our state, but hey, that's fine. But you can use that money to, let's say you don't have any equity remaining. You can use that money to go pay off one of your rentals, right? Even if you have a conventional loan right now, you're paying 0% interest. I mean, you're generating wealth automatically.
No matter what, it's a win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can just pay off your existing mortgages.
Yep.
With those. Okay, so let's see here. So what does your team look like today?
Yeah. So today we have 3 lead managers, 3 acquisitions, an operations manager, who's also our TC, my COO, Corey. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We don't have any project managers. We let a few go back in 2022. We're not flipping a whole lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
We are really, really getting dialed in on the sales and marketing side, and wholesaling.
Yeah. How many, you mentioned earlier, having the gal on your team, look at 1,000 resumes in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Is there full-time gig recruiting, or is she doing other things too?
Other things. She's also our TC.
Also your TC.
Yep.
So she's multi-talented.
She has a 400 COG score.
Yeah.
So what is do you know what a perfect one is? She scored a perfect COG score, which I've only seen one other time.
I don't know what the perfect COG score is. I know
it might be a 450 or
I think
something.
it's 450.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
So when you see that, right, that's somebody that can juggle a lot of things. Not necessarily that you want to do that, but when you're a startup and people got to wear different hats, you can have a high amount of confidence that they're going to be able to pick things up quickly and retain things.
Pick things up, retain things, move fast. You don't have to hold their hands.
You don't have to tell them to do the same thing 6 times like you do salespeople.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned, I didn't really embrace this until recently. I learned this from a mentor, is that the people you want to hire are the people that can move fast, right? They don't have to be the smartest. They don't have to be the best. But they have to be able to move fast.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they're slowing down the organization.
Yeah.
It's like, like, because we typically look for someone that's intelligent or highly skilled, but it doesn't matter how skilled you are. Like, when you pointed this out, I was like, oh, it's so obvious, right? It doesn't matter how good they are if it takes them a long time to do it.
Yeah.
So we got to be able to move fast. Speed is the most important thing in business, not intelligence or skill. I was like, man, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's twofold. Because then it's how much can they handle and the speed at which they can operate. But then you also save time back as the manager in training them because you're not having to hold their hand through the whole process. So it really is a double whammy. You're getting a 2-for-1 when you're hiring people with a good COG score.
Yeah.
Every person that I've hired with a low COG score has not worked out. It is the #1 predictor of job success.
What is your number now as far as the cutoff for the COG score?
It keeps creeping up.
Well, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes.
I think right now, 230, they have to have, prior sales experience out the wazoo. They have to have everything incredible for us to jump on that. But 250 is really like our lowest.
Yeah, I think 230, 250 is kind of where I'm at as well. And like this is terrible, right? Because like you remove yourself from the situation, you empower your team to go make the hiring decisions, right? And you later on you look at it, I was like, this guy has a 180 COG score. Like, who approved this?
Yeah.
Right? And it's our fault again for not putting that there, right? I was like, see where this goes, right? And like, this is terrible. But like, regular me is like, have we fired that guy yet? How's he doing? It's like, he's not doing well. I was like, why is he still here?
Yeah.
Why is he still here? But
yeah, those conversations are better had on the front end, just not
for sure, way better
right?
in front end, because like as heartless as I may appear and sound, right? The guy that you hire comes in, you like the guy, your manager likes the guy, he gets along with everybody, he's a culture fit, and now it's really hard to fire the guy, even though firing the guy is the right decision.
Yeah.
Right?
For
And
both of you, by the way, for the employee as well.
Yeah, for both parties. And it's like, I can walk into your company as like, Ryan, fire that guy, right? Because I'm objective, impartial, and you're like, Steve, I know, but.
Yeah.
Right? And you could walk into my organization like, Steve, are you not embarrassed? Like, fire that guy now. I was like, I know, Ryan, but. And so these people sneak in. And once they sneak in, it's hard to pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. And what we're stating is obvious.
Right.
But when you think about this is the real issue, what we're talking about makes a ton of sense. But when you realize the amount of work that it takes to go through that many resumes, the amount of interviews that you have to do just to find one person that you could hire, versus, well, he should be good enough. Let's give him a shot. Hundreds of hours of work, right?
Yeah.
So this is the hard part, right? Is like the reason that I hired an ops manager is because like I can't do this. I can't keep up with it. I can't put the level of action that I need to into this. I really have to hire somebody to do it. And although it wasn't even her core competency as a recruiter, she is doing far better than I ever could. So, but that is really the challenge. You have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, am I ready for this? Because then once you realize I can't hire people with low COG scores, it eliminates a lot of people.
I mean, eliminates a ton of people.
A lot of people. And then you're like, crap, this is so much more work than I ever thought it would be. So
I know, but it goes back to what you were saying earlier, right? If we treat recruiting like we do looking for motivated homeowners, if we gave it that much attention, then where would we be?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at some point along the way, you decided to offer coaching.
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll include in that.
So we'll do we'll do about 110 to 120 deals this year when it's all said and done. Before I get to the coaching part though, seasonally, I don't know what it's like in Phoenix.
It's amazing. Always.
Seasonally, December, January, and February are always our biggest months for off-market contracts. Every single year by like double.
Really?
Every year in Boise. Now, I don't know what it is for other people in the US, but with this election that just happened, which we don't need to necessarily get into that, but because I'm interviewing you tomorrow, so that'll be fun. But
I might get canceled tomorrow, so don't watch Ryan's show.
Perfect. Can't wait. But now that we're past this emotional hang up for people, I think you're going to see a ton of people making decisions that need to sell this winter. And I think we're going to see even more people sell in December, January, and February. So if you are sitting on the fence right now and you're being conservative with your marketing, I really think this is the time to press the gas. There's so much opportunity out there right now. Only people that need to sell do so in the middle of winter.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, you have all these awkward Thanksgiving conversations, right? All this forced family time when people are making difficult decisions and talking about next steps. That's the reason why I think we always do more contract volume, but especially like December 26th to December 30th, those 4 or 5 days is bonkers for us always.
So what I found, and this is purely anecdotal evidence, when I was on my own, the reason why I always did better in December, it was mostly December than all the other months, because I was the only one working. Like, I had no competition. Now, this is years ago.
Yeah.
Right? But like, I loved December because I bought everything. I literally had no competition. Phoenix is probably a lot different today, but this is like 10 years ago. If I met with a homeowner, it was around Christmas, it was a done deal.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about other people coming. I didn't have to worry about I need to think about it. It's like if I got a lead and I got them to agree to meet with me, it was a done deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe Boise being a slightly smaller market or being a smaller market, and you're the gorilla in there now.
Yeah.
So I give the Hulk in the pond. I think it makes total sense that you crush it, right? Because you got brand recognition and you're the biggest player. And not to say there's no other competitors there, because I know there are more, but you've been around this whole time.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking to Steve Ham at PPC Force, right?
Great dude.
Yeah. And he was saying like Doug Hopkins' opt-in rate on his PPC ad, double everyone else in Phoenix. Just double. Because when you go on Google and you say sell my house fast and you see Doug Hopkins and you see myself or these other people, it's like, I know Doug Hopkins. He's been here. He's been on TV for 20 years.
Yes. That's the reason, though, to go deep into one market versus trying to take on a bunch, right?
Yeah.
But the same reason we have elevated contact rates in the weekends in the fall and winter versus weekends in the summer, nobody's answering their phone. They're out doing stuff, right? When it starts getting dark earlier, people spend a lot more time at home. So it makes sense. You have more conversations. Your marketing spend is actually going further when you don't think. It's a complete opposite of on-market seasonality, where in spring and summer people tend to sell their homes, right?
Yeah, so we don't see as much of that seasonality, at least not recently. And I was talking to Michael Roos. All right, he's with Lee Arnold down in the other part of Idaho is really nice.
Coeur d'Alene.
Right, they're down there, and I was complaining about like daylight saving, like how it doesn't matter, right? And he's like, I would disagree. Up north, it makes a difference. Like,
I mean, in England right now, it gets dark at like 3:30.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
I have to take vitamin D supplements. Our whole family does. Yeah.
There's no sympathy from us Arizona desert boys.
Now in the summer, it doesn't get dark till like 10:30 at night, so it's kind of cool, but
really
wild, yeah.
So maybe that's why it makes sense because like I always thought it was for like the farmers and like so you can milk your cows and whatever.
No cows on the Trang farm.
There are no cows here. No, and if there were, I wouldn't be the one milking it. I would delegate that. So, all right, perfect. So we talked a lot about here. So we talked about like we have predictive index, which is huge for hiring. We got Weimer method and how to get loans at 0%. You're offering coaching. Oh, I missed this.
Yeah.
You touched on this. You also have a podcast.
I do.
Right?
Yeah, the Real Freedom podcast. Yeah.
So I see you posting wild stuff there with Corey. What is the story with this?
So the genesis of Real Freedom, I wanted to be like really authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the social media fake it stuff.
Yeah.
I like the real vulgar, crazy seller recorded calls. It's fun.
It is.
If you don't have fun with that stuff, it's free entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of our favorite things to do is if we get a crazy seller on the phone.
You guys just listen to it.
We just listen to it and act it out, right? It's almost like a comedy show to some degree.
Yeah.
But no, the whole reason why I started that is because I wanted to take a real look at what entrepreneurship is truly like.
Mm-hmm.
We start off every episode with people's most beautiful failure, and it's just a way to get vulnerable, so people understand. No, it's not all glamour and Lambos and watches and all that dumb shit that wholesalers love to flaunt. Like it's real life. So we started that. I do the private one-on-one coaching. We only have 9 people right now. So we have like a little small group mastermind in private. It's not something I do to the masses. Most of my focus is still very much on Offer Now Idaho because of how much we want to grow it. We want to be a $10 million revenue company by end of 2027. So my focus is very much there, but we will take on application only. If you are interested in mentorship, then you can shoot me a message.
How can someone reach you?
On Instagram at Ryan Weimer.
Yeah. And then we also touched on, so at real Ryan Weimer, we also touched on, we're in CG.
Yep.
Whale Club.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a lot of things going on. So we're focused. You still have a lot of things going on though.
Well, I think especially given what happened to me in not having the right mentor necessarily, I don't want that to take away from all the incredible mentors that I have had. And when you have that sense of community and people that have been there before you, that's priceless. It really is. It's priceless because whatever you're going through, I know I had a lot of calls with you when I was going through this. Other people in CG, a lot of people have been through way worse stuff than that. Yeah. And hearing how they handled it, I can't tell you how valuable that is. It really is priceless.
Yeah. The context you get, like, hey, I wasn't in your situation, but here's a situation I was in. Here's how I handled it. Right? I mean, you probably collected a lot of those stories to figure out how to proceed with your situation.
Yeah. And I think too, Pace had that guy steal everything from him, right? Brent went through that personal guarantee in 08 and 09. Yeah. Phil Green had that long con contractor that stole a crap load of money from him. Alex Hormozy lost everything twice. I mean, like the most successful people have had epic failures. It's just a prerequisite to entrepreneurship. So if you can get in a community like that, or you can get advice or be around these people, like you have to have this. Right. Because it's if you are trying to conquer, if you're a 3 Sigma independent, or you're just somebody that really wants to go for it and live life on your terms, you have to have somebody that you can go to for advice. You can't try this on your own. You're not going to do it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to have a tribe, and you have to get punched in the face, perhaps multiple times.
Yeah.
And then we've also had Bill at our event here.
Yes.
And he's crushing it.
He's crushing. Yes. He is. If you can hire ex-military, I will do it every time. They have an amount of discipline that they come in with. They handle failure a lot better than other industries. I'll just say that. Yeah. So yeah, every time, Steve, we send somebody to your sales training is just incredible. Like they come back and they do a bunch of deals every single day.
Yeah. And I love that he's a little rough, right? But he is so genuine and he has this desire to be the best version of himself. And so he's like, here's what I'm doing. What am I doing wrong?
Yep.
How can I do it better?
Yep.
Like if you can just surround and hire yourself a bunch of those guys, right? And then we can't finish this without talking about last night. So there's one thing I want to talk about because we talked a lot about extreme ownership and we talked about leadership.
Here we go.
Right? Well, it's just one thing because there were a lot of things I was not a fan of on the Democratic side.
Well, this is the first podcast post-election. It was literally yesterday.
It was literally last night. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. There are a lot of things I disagree with. Style, this and that, whatever. Right. Like you want to do it that way. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why you did it that way. Right. There's a lot of those things. Like I wouldn't agree with that decision about whoever's running a campaign. Very different ideologically how we want to run things. But I would say the thing that was the most disappointing happened last night. And it was her at Howard University for the celebration party, right? And like at 10:30 my time, which was 12:30 Eastern, they're like, hey, everyone, go to bed. We're going to figure this out tomorrow. But she sent out like some dude, I don't know if it was her campaign manager or what, right? But she didn't come out and do it. These people are out in the freezing cold. I don't know what it's like temperature-wise, 12:30. I don't know what state Howard is in. But it looked pretty cold.
It's got to be northeast, yeah.
Yeah, it looked pretty cold. Like they're all out there. Like your people went out there and fought for you. Like these are your loyal soldiers. Like to go to someone's like campaign party, these are the most loyal of the loyal.
100%, yeah.
Right? And you don't have it in you to go out there and it's like, hey, we fought a good fight. It's not looking good, but let's continue this tomorrow. You sent out some other guy. Like for me, I'm so glad she didn't win because if she can't show up for her most loyal supporters, how is she going to show up for Americans every day? Like that's how I see it, right? And like I think about it, like we mentioned Sub 2 and Pace Morby a moment ago. Like, could you imagine if Pace was running for president, right? And it wasn't looking good, which I don't know how it's possible. He's a first ballot, right? For sure, first ballot president if he runs, right? But let's say he doesn't win. Could you imagine at his campaign thing, him not showing up to meet his community?
It wouldn't even cross his mind as a possibility to not do it.
Yeah, right?
It would be so against everything about him. Mm-hmm. And you contrast that with Trump, who's getting shot at and standing up while he could get shot in the face.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty drastic swing in leadership, right?
Right.
So I don't care. I don't like politics. I don't even watch the news very often, but that is very much an example of anti-leadership.
Yeah.
Right?
So
that is weak leadership.
Yeah. So we talk about, extreme ownership and accountability and leading the people. Is like, for me, I was like, man, thank God she didn't win because that's wild to not show up for your most loyal people. Not even like, these are people from my state or whatever. Like, these are the people that are going to war with you.
Yeah. And out of ego, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you don't do it.
Yeah.
Is because you feel insecure or shame on some level that you've disappointed either yourself or people around you and you just can't own it.
You put yourself before others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like, look, you have an ego. I have an ego. Like, there's no like, Trump's got an ego, right? Like, we're not saying,
no kidding. Yeah.
we're not saying this like you can't have an ego. It's just that you have to put others first at times. And like for me, that was like the starkest example I could see it for her entire campaign.
Well, you find out people's true colors in adversity.
Exactly. I think I can't remember the exact words, but I mean that's a paraphrase of what Martin Luther King said.
Yeah.
Right. Like through adversity, you find out who has the courage.
Yeah.
Their true colors come out. So, all right. So we talked about it a lot. And again, Weimer method, it's fascinating. I want to learn more about this. I want to learn how to do this. What are some last words you want to leave everyone with?
Winter is coming. No,
That's probably how it feels in London, but over here.
No, I really think you don't need to floor it like I floored it in 2021, but I really think now that the election is behind us, I mean, you saw what the stock market did today, their reaction, right?
They feel good about it.
They feel good about it.
Bitcoin feels great about it.
Bitcoin feels great about it. The 10-year yield, unfortunately, also feels good about it. Bond yields.
Yeah.
So mortgage rates are getting really high right now. But when we deal with an industry based on emotional decision making, like we do with properties, when you remove emotional barriers for people, they begin to get confidence. So now we've had a few years of rates being higher. The election is behind us. It's winter. You're gonna find a lot of people that have newfound optimism in the market and newfound confidence to make decisions.
Yeah.
And that's good for business. Now, you got to be careful about doing flips and stuff with rates this high if you're in one of those affordability ceiling markets. But there's a reason why we're hiring more salespeople. We're not dialing back marketing right now. This is definitely the time to do it, because you're gonna see. Watch in January, people are gonna go bananas again. Everybody's gonna jump back in at once.
Yeah, I think to your point, like everyone that's been kind of like, let's see, let's wait. We don't know what's going to happen. Everyone that's been waiting and maybe metaphorically holding their breath,
yes,
is now going to do something. They don't know what, but they're going to do something now.
Yeah, and this all comes back to control what you can control, right? So you don't need to be an idiot about it and just be ridiculous. But if you zig when other people zag, that's usually a pretty good recipe for success, especially in real estate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Always great
Great
seeing
having
you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. Disruptors.